Hello, Year 12. Now, this is the amazing technology that I've been figuring out for the whole day, basically. So hopefully this works well for you. What I'm going to do is, we've got the poem here that we are looking at, this poem, The Past, that I got you guys to give your opinions on and to annotate as best you could. And I'm going to show you how I annotate a poem, and what your job is to obviously listen to me, but I want you to be able to pause this video whenever I write something so that you can copy it onto your copy of the poem as well. Now, some of it that I write down, you might think, oh, I'd rather put that in dot points on another page or whatever. I don't mind, do whatever works for you. What I find works for me is that I use different colours just so that it breaks up the kind of wall of my writing a bit, and I find it a bit easier to manage. And so I tend to do, specific techniques in one colour. If I'm talking about overarching themes or values, another colour, and then, a third colour for other bits and pieces. So first off, this poem obviously is about the past, and it is about Oodgeroo and Noonuccal's ability to recognise the past and take us into that importance of the past as well. Now, she starts off with this quite a defensive tone, saying, "Let no one say the past is dead." And I say that I think it's defensive, and I get that through inferring that. Now, if you're not sure what inference means, it means that you're able to understand something without it being explicitly said through the way it's said, the word choice, that sort of thing. So when she says, "Let no one say the past is dead," I think she's really answering that overarching idea within her time of people saying, don't worry about the past, it's over, you don't need to think about it. So I'm going to start off by writing at the top, and this is one of those things where you might write it elsewhere. The start makes us aware that she is addressing those that claim that the past is not important. So the start makes us aware that she is addressing those who claim that the past is not important. Now, I'm going to add in a different colour. So I like to do my techniques in red. Choose whatever colour you like. And I'm going to write inference, because it is a technique that she's using, this technique of inferring. Inference of defensiveness. We understand that she feels that the connection to past has been questioned. And I might just add here, I feel like this is, even though we've got this air of defensiveness here, this tone of defensiveness, it's ultimately a very positive poem. In the poem, which you should be familiar with now because I've asked you to read it and to consider, I said yesterday, consider each line very thoughtfully. We've got these values that come through, and the values that I want you to make specific note of, and I will write these for you as well, are the value of time, both past and present, and the ability for those to be connected, the connections to land, ancestors and nature, and that sense of security of cultural presence and spirituality. We have this poem finishing with a real sense that she feels very secure in her connection to the past. So I'm just going to I'm just going to go with a different colour again because it's a little bit of a different point. So I'm just putting here values. So she's got values relating to time, both past and present. The connectedness between the past and the present. We've got connections to land, nature, and ancestors. And this security, I'm just going to put this one here because I'm running out of room a little bit. Security of that cultural presence and spirituality. Oh, oops, hold on. I'm going to run out of room. Okay. Now, this one here, this notion of connectedness and to land, nature, and ancestors, it's quite important in that this is a theme that runs throughout all of the poems that are set for study for our HSC. So we're just going to put runs thematically because we're going to keep on coming back to this theme throughout. And remember that, you know, when you're writing your responses, you want to have that ability to connect between the poems so that you're not looking at poems in isolation. This will be one of the ways that you can do that. I'm just going to put through all set poems. And by that I mean the poems set for study for us. Okay, now, when you are studying a poem like this, it's a really good idea just to take a moment to number all of the lines, because then if you are referring to specific lines, it's easy for you to know which ones you're referring to. So I'm just going to take a moment now to number the lines. I want you to do the same. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27. Beautiful. Now, to the first stanza. I'm just going to read it and talk about what's going on in this first part. The past. Let no one say the past is dead. The past is all about us and within, haunted by tribal memories. I know this little now, this accidental present, is not the all of me, whose long making is so much of the past. All right, now, the first thing that I notice is this repetition of the word the past, or the word past, okay? So we've got it obviously in our title, and we have it here, and we have it here, and we have it here. Now, this is a way that she really clearly and cleverly establishes the theme of the past. So we're going to write as our annotation, repetition of past establishes the theme. Okay. Now, the other thing that we can make note of straight away is that this poem is written in first person. So we've got this first person pronoun of I, and then we've also got the collective pronoun of us, first person of me, and this just makes the poem quite personal. And when a poem is personal, we believe it more. There's that greater sense of authenticity when we feel that someone is referring to their own experience. So we've got us first is our collective noun, and then the first person personal pronoun. And that gives us a sense of connection. And that word I said before, authenticity. Now, authenticity is when we believe what someone is saying. We feel like it's authentic. Okay, now, this verb here, the word haunted is an important one. Now, if you have not heard of the term intergenerational trauma, and you perhaps haven't, you need to know what it means. Now, I want you, one of the things, and I'll make sure that you all do this, is I want you to look up intergenerational trauma. I might actually give you a bit of a direction as to where to head to learn about that. But very, very basically, it refers to the knowledge that we have now that when really horrific events occur to someone, that trauma can be passed down through generations because it impacts so heavily that it can't not be passed down in some way, shape or form. So we talk about intergenerational trauma for people who survived the death camps of Auschwitz, for instance, and the persecution of the Jews. We might talk about intergenerational trauma if someone comes from a long line of abuse in a family. We talk about intergenerational trauma with Aboriginal people and the trauma of what has happened to them over the years since white invasion. So haunted here refers to that notion of intergenerational trauma. And the word haunted is negative, isn't it? So we can go negative imagery. And we're going to say of intergenerational trauma. Can you see how I've just used different colours there? Purely because the words that I'm writing end up being quite close together, and that just separates it a little bit. Now, the reason why I've highlighted that is because you have to go off and look up intergenerational trauma. It's really important that you understand that. The word accidental is the next one we're going to have a look at. This accidental present. It's very clever because accidental means it shouldn't have happened. If things had gone well, then that wouldn't have been a thing. And that's how she's referring to the present. So the present for her is the loss of that ancestral knowledge and the way that Aboriginal people had lived for so long a time prior to, oh my goodness, those are my dogs. Can you hear them? I bet you they're barking at a cat. Hold on, let me yell at them. Peter Dinklage, Sporty. Oi. There can't be anyone here because we are in isolation, so. Peter Dinklage. There's some excitement for you. Okay, sorry about that. They've gone outside to bark. I'm sure it was a cat walking past. All right. So this accidental present, this accident is the present that they're living in now, and that it's not what was supposed to be. And so it is negative again here. And we're just making note of the the understanding that this is not the way it was supposed to be. That it has changed. So the course of history has changed due to white men. Okay. By the time we get to the end of this opening, this first stanza, and we've had the beginning of "Let no one say the past is dead," and then we finish with "is so much of the past," we understand here now that she's definitely talking about the past as being inescapable. And so even though this present is accidental, it's not what it's supposed to be, the past will never be gone. It's inescapable. Okay, beautiful. All right, let's move on to the second part of the poem. I think it's quite positive. It's quite nice. So she's not really saying anything terrible about the present in this poem. She's talking about the fact that you can still be connected to the past whilst in this very different present. And it just requires the ability to dream and to imagine and to allow yourself to relax and to connect. So here we have: "Tonight here in suburbia, as I sit in easy chair before electric heater, warmed by the red glow, I fall into dream." Now, warmed is very positive, isn't it? It's a lovely positive verb. We all know how nice it is to be inside at home. It's a cold day. We're before a heater and just relaxing and feeling that warmth. So we're going to write here positive verb. And it's positive because it's showing us that we're adaptable and that the present can be comforting and that we can adapt to where we are now while still embracing the past. So we're going to write here adaptability. The present is comforting. Now, whilst we've got that positive verb with warmed, we also have this contrast happening between the past and the present, between modern life, between the life of the ancient people. And so this word electric, I think, stands out. You know, she could have been sitting in a room that had a nice wood fire. She, has chosen to say that she's in easy chair before electric heater. And that's quite deliberate to show that contrast between that which is modern and that which is ancient. And so, of course, the contrast here for the electric heater is the bushfires or the campfire rather, that she speaks of just down here. So both offering warmth, but one is natural, one is modern, man-made. And so we're going to write here contrast, and there's lots of contrasts in this poem. Contrast, so electric shows that something is manufactured, it's man-made, isn't it? So electric, imagery of modern man-made. And we also think of electric, electric heater as being inside as well, whereas when she dreams of her people, she's in the outside, and that's quite significant as well. So, but, it's modern, it's man-made, it's inside, but it's still comforting. So we really need to make note of that, but still comforting. So like I said before, she's not saying this is a horrible situation. She's she's still comfortable. She's got this lovely warm heater and sitting in this lovely easy chair. The chair, we have, it's a conceptual repetition, we call it. So we do have repetition of the chair. I might just change colours here because I'm getting a little bit filled up. But we've got easy chair here. And then down on line 21, she talks about deep chair. So both times the chair is comfortable. Both times it's something that allows her the journey into the dream that she is having, the journey into the dream time. So we've linked those two, and we're just going to write here conceptual repetition. And what the chair allows for is that notion of sit, relax, sleep, dream, and from there we automatically think of the dream time, don't we? And we know the dream time to be the telling of the Aboriginal stories and the place where the ancestral knowledge and culture is passed down. It's very important. And this is something we'll go into a little bit more, particularly with the other poems, but Oodgeroo Noonuccal was very clear in stating that she felt her poetry should be read by people of any culture and adapted to their own sense of identity and culture. And when we talk about the Dreamtime stories of the Aboriginal people, it's similar to the ideas that we have in other cultures where lessons were taught to young children through nursery rhymes and stories and fairy tales. The art of telling stories and telling of culture through song, through poems, through stories that have been verbally conveyed rather than written down, especially many centuries ago when people didn't read and write very readily. That's something that is universal and that we understand has been a way to pass knowledge from generation to generation. And so that idea of dreamtime here that we've got is a universal idea, not just one that is, only for the Aboriginal people, dreamtime. So I'm just going to highlight that and just write this word universal. Universal telling of stories, I'm going to write, okay? Universal telling of stories, connection, and again that word connection to past. All right, now where are we up to? Okay. So another contrast we have here. So I've just been talking about the chair and that conceptual repetition. Of course, when she speaks about being in the dream time or, in the past, she's sitting on ground. And so again, that notion of being comfortable and being somewhere where you can just be still and think or dream, the contrast between the two settings to allow for the difference in, what did I just do? To allow for the difference in our settings here. Contrast. So it's the contrast again with the present and the past. And I'll put imagery because it is imagery, that notion of sitting and where they are in the world. All right. Now, of course, one of the things that we know is vitally important to all humanity and to Oodgeroo Noonuccal here is the idea of my own people and being part of a community. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I've mentioned to my class, I don't know whether you guys remember, and others may have done Maslow's hierarchy of needs in other subjects like maybe PDHPE or CAFs and things like that. But basically, humans have got these very basic needs that need to be met down at the bottom of the scale of things in order to progress through to being happy, basically. And one of the essential things that we have as humans is the need to belong and to connect with other people. So this importance of community is, again, important to Oodgeroo and to the Aboriginal people, but it's important universally as well. We all need our community. Because we are speaking specifically here about Aboriginality, I will just write importance of community. I'm going to put in Aboriginal connection. All right. No walls about me, the stars over me. Again, we've got this, I guess it is contrast. We've got the inside, the outside, the difference between. No walls about me, the stars above me. And it gives a sense of real freedom. We've got the vastness of eternal nature contrasted to the insignificant confines of the walls of the present. And we've got the same syllables here. Like, this is a free verse poem. There's no rhyming, there's no set syllables or set lines for anything. But in these two lines, we've got the same syllables. We've got no walls about me, 5 syllables. The stars over me, 5 syllables. And that just gives a really nice sense of rhythm, okay? So we're going to write 5 syllable lines. And equals rhythm. And did I ask you guys yesterday to think about how a sense of rhythm is created in this poem? I think I did. And in that case, this is how it's created, through these moments. And this statement that I made before about the vastness, I'm going to write that here. So get this down. The vastness of eternal nature contrasted to the insignificant confines. It's getting a little bit messy here, but that's all right. The insignificant confines of the walls of the present. Now, I think that these walls, when we see them here, are not only the walls of, they are the walls of her house, but that notion that the walls can also be metaphoric. The walls of society in the present and the confines of living without the Aboriginal culture is implied here in this notion of walls. And, when we're talking about eternal nature, nature is eternal. The stars are always there. The sky is always there. The trees are always there. And the houses and the walls are those that will deteriorate over time and not be there eternally. So we've got that contrast there between the walls and the stars. So maybe just because I was saying this, can have a metaphoric meaning to it. Let's just put that here as metaphoric. Metaphoric walls of, let's call it modern life. Okay. Now, it's my dog barking again. And I think it's because my neighbour is bringing the bins in. Hold on just a moment. Sporty! 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 Oh my goodness. Sporty! He's old and he's deaf and he cares not for my commands. Okay. The tall surrounding trees. So let's just add this idea of the tall surrounding trees into these nature images that we've got, because they're all part of that same image. And the tall surrounding trees that stir in the wind, making their own music. Of course, when we're talking about nature in this way, we've got personification happening, haven't we? So personification of nature. And the, oh my goodness. Sporty! Hold on, I'm just going to get Sporty. Sporty, come here. Stop it. Stop barking. You're so annoying. Go into Emmett. What's Emmett doing? I'm trying to do a video and Sporty's barking his hell. You need to stop? Okay, I don't know if you heard that, but I just told my son to control his dog. Okay, personification of nature. Yes, making their own music. Right. Okay, and I'm back. Now, this is where, of course, all of this section, so basically between lines 10 right down to 24, is where we're in this dreamlike state, this really lovely dreamlike state. So let's write that here. And when I read this aloud, I find myself kind of trying to adopt this dreamy tone to my voice in this section, because I feel like the sound of the trees and the movement that is so gentle of the wind in the trees just makes me think of that dreamy nighttime. I don't know if you guys have ever been camping, but when it's very late at night and everything is very peaceful and there's just the sounds of nature, and I really get that sense here. So the music that is actually mentioned, so making their own music and soft cries of the night, we've got this lovely oral imagery. Now, if you don't remember, oral imagery is the sense of sound. So we're going to just kind of highlight soft cries. And you can see that when I'm annotating, I do lots of like weird things like highlighting here and doing this there. And it's just so that I have things looking a bit different so that I can see all the different ideas. But you might come up with your own way of doing this. Making their own music, soft cries of the night. So we're going to write oral imagery. And it's soothing, I think. Do you think? I'm going to write that word, soothing. I think it is soothing. It's lovely. And we've just had the rhythm of no walls about me, the stars over me, the tall surrounding trees that stir in the wind. And I think we've got a little bit of alliteration going on here too. When I read that out, we've got the soft cries of the night coming to us, the surrounding trees that stir in the wind, the stars over me. So I hear that. I'm not going to call it sibilance, because, you know, when we've got the repetition of S with sibilance, there's usually a sinister sound there, but I think this is more soothing, and it's, you know, so where we've got soothing, I'm going to put alliteration of S, which all just adds to that soothing sound of the dreamtime. Now, this soft cries of the night coming to us, I think of that as referring also to the storytelling. Soft cries of the night coming to us. I don't know. I just think of that as being storytelling. You may not agree with me there. It's all right. Don't have to write it if you don't agree. Soft cries of the night coming to us, there where we are one with all old nature's lives, known and unknown. Known and unknown. Now, we've got this, now it's kind of a funny type of alliteration here. It's almost like a repetition alliteration. It's kind of not strictly either or. I'm going to call it alliteration. And what is quite nice about this is it gives us that rhythm again. So the stars over me, no walls about me, known and unknown. So alliteration, which gives us rhythm. And with that rhythm, we've got this idea. So the known, obviously, is what we know. The unknown is the stories that are lost, the lost culture, the lost stories. And this poem was written in 1970. It's, relatively modern. I mean, a long time ago for us, but in terms of Aboriginal history, it's quite modern. We know that so much of Aboriginal culture was lost when white man invaded. We know that the assimilation of Aboriginal people into white culture and the white culture policy got rid of so many of the Aboriginal languages and customs and stories and knowledge. And the great sadness that we get in that word unknown refers to the fact that they'll never be recovered. And so I think that there's a very somber tone in that very short line, those three words, known and unknown. We've got rhythm. I'm going to write, where am I writing it? Lost culture and stories. And I'm going to write somber tone. Somber tone. It's very sad. In scenes where we belong but have now forsaken. So we're connecting here with these two, where are we? We are one. And where we belong, so that sense of unity, that sense of togetherness, that collective pronoun of we. And, it also connects with my own people. So we've got my own people, we are one, where we belong. And there's strength in that. So I'm going to write strength in unity. And it gives a sense of place as well. In scenes where we belong but have now forsaken. And what a sad word forsaken is. It is full of meaning and emotion. Forsaken literally means abandoned, forgotten. And I think that it's quite sad here to use, because in scenes where we belong but have now forsaken, because that forsaking, that abandonment, that forgetting was not of their own volition. It wasn't something that Aboriginal people would ever have wanted. It was forced upon them, abandoned, forgotten. So what did I just say? It's I'm going to put, but not of their own will. So that makes it sad. It's such a sad word, forsaken. It's a great one to use. And then she comes back to the present, deep chair, an electric radiator. And again, we've got that word electric, that reminder that we're back in the present. But the deep chair, it's still comfortable. She's been able to connect with this dream time in her deep chair with her electric radiator, and we're back. And then she says, but since yesterday. But 1,000 campfires in the forest are in my blood. And so here she's saying, you know what? Yep, this modern time, this present, this now is nothing in comparison to the enormity of history. And so we might have this little present, but the thousands of years of the past are so important and so significant and can't be forgotten. And she's taking great comfort in that. She's not sad here. She's saying, you know what? All of the horrors don't erase the beauty of the past. So how can we say that? Oh, let's just say it like I just said, actually. I'm going to put now is insignificant. It does not erase the past. And I'll put which is much bigger. All right. 1,000 campfires, and we've got this really nice example of repetition here, don't we? 1,000. So we've got repetition. And of course, the repetition here goes to emphasize the length of time that the Aboriginal people were living prior to white man's arrival. And their 1,000 campfires in the forest are in her blood. So that nice metaphor here that gives her the comfort of knowing the past is stronger than the present. So comfort of knowing that the past is much stronger than the present. Let none tell me the past is wholly gone. And she's got this beautiful firm tone here. It is said with such confidence. So we're going to say firm tone, confident tone. Let's say firm, confident tone. Now is so small a part of time, so small a part. Now this is a special type of repetition which we call anaphora. And anaphora means repetition of a clause or words at the start of sentences or start of clauses. So here we've got so small, the two words repeated, so it makes it an example of anaphora. And what this anaphora does is it's helping with the rhythm of the poem, which combines with the other aspects like the 5-syllable rhythm and the alliterative rhythm of known and unknown. And at the same time, obviously emphasizing that now is quite insignificant. So it links to this idea here, right, of the present being much less significant than the past. Now, there's also an irony here, all right? Now, I did ask for you guys to see if you could find an example of irony, and it would have been tricky to find, so I don't, be upset if you didn't find it. But this is actually our example of irony, and I'll tell you why. the Western world, we put so much emphasis on the now. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because there's so much to be said for living in the now and not worrying about the past or the future. But we are all about the now. And for other cultures, the past is much more significant than the now. And not that the now isn't important, but that it has to be influenced by the past, and it has to be informed by the past. And so I think the irony here is that Western culture places so much emphasis on the present, and here Noonuccal reveals that the present's actually insignificant. There's much more in the past that is of importance. So we are going to write that down. I'm running out of room a little bit, so what I might do is, if I do it like this, this will work. Okay, watch this. So this is our example of irony. And it is irony because Western culture places much emphasis on the present. Noonuccal am I doing? Better spell her name correctly. This is one of the things you'll have to practice, is how to spell her name. So Noonuccal reveals the present's insignificance. There is much more in... I'll put the past is of most importance. Now, I think that this is, and I've said it a few times now, that it's real, quite a positive poem. We've got these somber aspects to it, but there's this positivity, and I think it is in her saying to all who may be damaged and hurt by things of the present, take comfort in knowing that this is but a small time. Take comfort in knowing that what is past and the significance of our ancestors of the past is so very important that we can be okay. And so I feel like she's ending on this very strong idea. And this last line I've been thinking about a lot, of all the race years that have moulded me. Now, this idea of race years, I've gone around and around with a few different interpretations of it, I guess. And I think she's referring to both white and Aboriginal culture. And I think she's kind of talking about that contrast between the two, that battle between the two, the push and pull, if you will, of the different races. Because this word moulded, it's quite a repressive word. It indicates that she's been shaped into something that wasn't of her own doing, that maybe she's been shaped into what white man wanted her to be, but she is also able to form her own shape in a sense. I guess I'm not being very clear, but we're going to write here repressive. And it's repressive in that she's inferring the challenges of being black in a white-ruled society. Okay. And for race years, I don't know, what do you think? Shall we put... This is where I miss having you guys in front of me. I would like to hear what you think. I'm going to write both white and Aboriginal, I guess what it does give us is the significance of cultural identity. And I guess, you know, at the end of the day, that's what's inescapable. The past is inescapable, and your past is your culture, where you came from, who you are as a sum of all that has happened before you. And at the end of this poem, I think Oodgeroo Noonuccal is in a very comfortable place of saying, yeah, I'm here in this modern world and I've had to be shaped and moulded by a white man into something that was accidental, that shouldn't have been. But whilst I'm here in this form, I can dream and I can go back to that dream time and connect with my past and understand what is important in my culture. So that is our analysis of the past. We might come up with some more things as we go along, but that kind of gives us a good starting point. Hopefully this has been a useful way to do the analysis in the absence of us being in a classroom together. Please let me know what you think about this way of doing things, whether it's helpful, whether you liked it, whether, you know, it was good to be able to stop and write, or if you could kind of keep up with me. Any feedback is most welcome. This is, of course, the very first time I am doing this with my iPad, so please give me some feedback. Miss you guys enormously. Wish I was there in the classroom with you, but I really do hope that this is working for you. Anyway, let me know. Comment below, please. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just speaking out into the wide world of the web and no one's listening to me.